All right, thanks again for all of you for joining us here at Inside My Canoe Head. I am your host, Dr. D. Today, we are going to talk about opportunity and chaos. Welcome to Tariff land. This is our world. WTF. Sit back, grab yourself your favorite beverages. Let's get at her. All right, welcome back to this show and all our regular listeners and anybody who's new out there in podcast land. My name is Dr. D. I am the host of Inside My Canoe Head. We have been on the air, for those that are new, since April of 2020. It was the beginning of a pandemic project to talk about preparedness and how everybody was absolutely unprepared and ready to navigate such a significant shock. Well, welcome back to rinse and repeat number 47 since then. We are in Tariff land. We are in whatever you want to call it, Canuckistan if you don't like us, or America pushing its muscle out. I tell you, listen, the one thing that I know to be true, and I pay attention to a lot of online feeds, good, bad, or indifferent, and we'll talk about that in a second. I know that there is someone out there with a whole bunch of post-nominals who is saying what you agree with. You just have to work really hard to find them. The point being is are we in a time where we are emotionally intelligent enough to have a detailed assessment, analysis, and conversation about the world in which we find ourselves, or are we going to be emotionally distraught, tied, and making rash, unproductive decisions? Listen, that's the point of today's podcast. We're going to talk about it. Now is a perfect opportunity to be bold, to be aggressive, and go out and do some pretty amazing and crazy things. And you may think that as some counterproductive advice in the middle. And I'm going to tell you, the pandemic taught us that there are a whole bunch of wonderful entrepreneurs and everyday regular people who saw opportunity, who saw silver lining in the chaos, jumped for it, leaped for it, had the confidence, had the belief in themselves, did something bold, and became very wealthy, or reached a different level of their brand management, their personal brand, their accolades within their industry, their profession, or just simply found ways to feel more economically, politically, and personally secure in the environment in which they found them by being bold, taking action, and not complaining. And trust me, and I know you know the answer to this question too, we all think that there is enough complaining and you know what out there. There's no shortage of it. And like I said, if you believe a certain truth about the world, if your worldview is X, I can guarantee you today, you are going to find a prominent voice in one of the mainstream medias or one of the popular online platforms that will absolutely advocate for exactly what you're saying. The point being is that it's right back to what we've talked about many times in this podcast. It's the ability to understand the world around you, to allow yourself to have the emotionally responsible reaction. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to profess how you feel about injustice or what's being done at various government levels by various different personalities. But in the end, it becomes a disorder, and I mean that literally. It becomes a disorder when you allow yourself to become so emotionally charged that you have physiological reactions to what people are doing, what they're saying, and then you use that physiological reaction and that emotional charge to make some pretty dumb, profound statements or decisions. Now, for example, remember when Donald Trump got elected and a series of people previous to that, celebrities, has said they were going to leave the United States of America if he got elected. He gets elected. Nobody contests that it was a fair election. The point here is a number of them did leave. They did go, and a bunch of people posted a site where they were willing to pay for the airline tickets for all of the celebrities who said they were going to go. And some didn't, right? Because often we don't know whether the bold claims and the bold statements that we hear online by people of considerable position or by our friends and family when they say they're going to make rash illogical, emotionally driven and charged decisions as a result of something that's completely beyond their control. And that's the point that I really want to gear into today, is that there is so much about what's going on. And I wrote about this in a Substack this morning. I'm over on Substack free of charge. I don't have paid subscribers. Under Jeff Donaldson. If you look for me on Substack, you'll find today's piece that I wrote that's entitled Opportunity in Chaos, right? And I'll read you the first couple of sentences so you understand where I'm coming from. It just says, there are no shortage of diatribes online about the state of global leadership, whether your guy is making the necessary realignments long called for but never enacted, or someone left the baboon door open at the zoo and we need to apologize to the baboons. This is a chaotic time for global order. And the point of that is that we have a very specific, and the Stoics call this the dichotomy of control. And it means everything that happens in the world can generally put into one of two baskets: things you can control or influence and things you cannot, right? For example, I live in a parliamentary democracy here in Canada. I get a vote at the next federal election. We don't know. There'll be one coming soon enough. Has to be one by October 2026 by the Constitution. Fair enough. I will get a vote. I will have the opportunity and the right to cast my vote for my personal member of parliament and tangentially for the party that I want to lead the country, right? I don't get a say in the final say. I don't get the final say. I get a say, but not the final say. And no one in the world cares whether I agree with the political outcome. No one in the world really wants to hear my rant about my guy or my girl didn't win, right? The reality is I had an opportunity to vote, and I've decided by a whole bunch of reasons that I've talked about in previous podcasts, I've decided and you've decided to live in the country in which you live. And by default, by staying there, you've accepted all of the rules of the game. You get your say, you vote, your person wins. If your person doesn't win, you make your posts online about how you think this is horrible or rash. But then you have a duty and responsibility to you, your family, your future, your personal and your professional life to sit back and say, okay, this is the environment in which I find myself. I didn't prescribe it. It's not the one I was looking for, but here we are. And it really is that simple. No one asks if you like it, and Frank, nobody cares if you like it. The point being is you look at your strategy, and we've talked at length on this podcast about you needing to have a strategy, you needing to have a process by which you create a life strategy. You create first a risk mitigated situation, and then you roll out, how do I go about figuring out the world around me, right? And so you have that. You've got a strategy, you've got a goal, you've got hopes, and you've got dreams, and you've chosen to remain in the country you're in. And the rules of the game changed, and the people in charge of the game changed. Your duty and responsibility is to figure out, how do I execute the mission as I want to do it within the parameters I don't control? I'm not going to get emotionally invested or upset or mad about political and economic decisions because I don't control them. I mean, sure, some of them are going to piss me off, for lack of a better term, and they're going to make me mad. But let's be frank, I don't control the Bank of Canada's rate decisions. I don't control what my prime minister says as a press conference. I don't control what programs the duly elected federal government enacts in the Parliament of Canada to create laws. I don't control any of that. And nobody out there and all of my listeners, nobody cares whether I agree with it or not. The point is as the rules change, as the personalities change, the emotions will go up and down. But how do you figure out how to be successful? That's your role. At least not have a loss. I'm here to tell you today that there's incredible opportunity out there, and you need to be bold to figure out where it is, because it does exist, right? If you got to think about people in the pandemic happened. A lot of people had lost their jobs. A lot of people got furloughed for a short period of time and were hoping they came back. But I would argue that the significant majority of the population sat back on their living room couches and just waited for the world to return to normalcy. 2 weeks to flatten the curve turned into be a couple of years of on and off lockdowns, causing an incredible level of disruption in people's lives. There were some people who profited from that. And I don't mean profited off the loss or profited off the pandemic. They saw an opportunity. The set of needs in society changed. The new set of needs emerged that society required as a result of the change of circumstances, and people figured out that they could be the individual or they could be the business that would provide them that need. So the person who realized when masks were on and off again and then were finally on and everybody said we need masks, all of a sudden people were making non-medical masks that could be curtailed in your own personality. And people made a freaking killing. And they did it because they were serving an emerging need that did not exist before. They found the opportunity and they launched it, and they launched a business, and they were successful. The same thing now. We're not in a pandemic, but we're in the same type of disruptive event. Very immediate, very short order. And I'm the CEO and principal researcher at Preparedness Labs Incorporated, which is a Canadian research and education firm dedicated to the field of preparedness, risk management, and helping people and communities grow and become more resilient. We work across borders. I've had to develop a strategy as to how I can move our goods and services across the border, interact, conduct research, and do other things within the United States of America while not violating any rules that I don't control. Because as the tariffs were dropped down on today, we now have tariffs going across both sides of the border. I have to look to see what inputs for my business are now going to be burdened with extra tariffs. I have to decide what to do with my pricing model as a response. But I did that 3 months ago, right? I didn't wait until the tariff showed up to decide what I was going to do. I didn't wait till somebody threatened them. It was in the guy's freaking campaign. As soon as it looked like Donald Trump was going to win the election, which I think we pretty much knew the day he got shot, that no matter who they put in, whatever puppet they put in to replace Biden, it would have been irrelevant that Trump was definitely going to win. That's the time at which I realized that tariffs were likely to occur, and it was my responsibility as a business owner to come up with an eventual plan to deal with tariffs. Not to sit here and belay and argue with people and tell them the tariffs are bad and that we shouldn't have them. And I can advocate for all of that, but at the same time, I have a duty and responsibility to the shareholders of the company and myself and my employees to make sure that this company would remain viable and arguably increase revenue as a result of that. As a result of the imposition of tariffs, how do I increase revenue? Not just maintain status quo. This is what I talk about the bold. This is what strategic planning and strategic thinking, which are two different things, this is what they offer. When the sensing changes, and I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, so hang on, grab a hold of the desk and hang on, we're going on a ride here. When I was in operations management and supply chain management, my personal specialty was demand sensing. And demand is the number one part, the first part of your supply chain, right? It is understanding what people want at the point of order. So when the people put in an order, getting an order, etc., but it's understanding the demand. What do people want? Demand sensing is a subspecialty of that, which is all about, it's a very similar idea to reconnaissance in the military. Going out and figuring out what people are doing or what they're likely to do before they do it so that you can inform your supply chain. So my role and responsibility as a specialist in the demand sensing area was to understand what is likely to happen long before it happened and then provide recommendations or make systemic changes within the supply chain to get it ready to react when the stimulus happened. So when the stimulus happened, I was a proactive supply chain, which means the ones that I were involved in were able to deal with the change because they were ready to it. Whereas other global supply chains, and you saw it through the pandemic, were twisting and turning and bending and breaking because nobody took that as a real possibility and nobody did the work. So tangentially, that's one of the ideas about, you should have seen this in the fall of 2024, that tariffs were coming against Canada. If you think it's a surprise today, I don't know what to tell you other than pay attention to the world around you, right? This was like billboard stuff all over every industrial discussion board that this was more than likely. Had a balance of probabilities, if you will, maybe not to the legal state of beyond a reasonable doubt, but significant enough likelihood that it would have initiated strategic thinking in some pretty high important people in every different company to do that. And so when you change the unit of measure to you and your family. So let's take it from an international corporation or a corporation like myself that works on cross-border issues down to you. How does these changes, or how might these changes influence how you live your life, etc.? Now, obviously, you hopefully would have done this exercise 3-4 months ahead of time. But if you're just doing it today, it's really understanding your exposure and understanding how it might impact you. But understand your line of business and what you're in. So everybody has a profession of some type that you earn an income, whether it be a salaried work, a traditional professional, or whether you're an entrepreneur. There's really only 3 things you can be in the world. Each one of the field that you belong in has exposure. You do something, you provide a good or a service. What opportunities in your lines of business are likely to open up as a result of this disruption? And you might say, well, we have nothing to do with cross-border stuff. No, you don't have something to do with cross-border stuff. That's great. But if you're a B2B, a lot of other businesses do. And they're going to have to make changes. What changes are they likely to make? And what are they going to look for now that they may be limited with their international business? And when you start thinking like that, just within the industry you're involved in, it could be something as simple as auto mechanics because of your parts. Where are you getting your parts from? Because they cross the border. There's now tariffs on them. Hopefully you had this all before. What about cross-provincial distribution? Who's holding inventory? Who's willing to part with inventory? What on-call or on-demand arrangements can you make for inventory? Like, there's a lot of things that you can do in every industry to position your company and your organization, and I would say on the other side of the coin, your family, against the potential impacts of what is happening. Because I wrote this in the piece this morning, quite literally, we are not even finished Act 1 of the play. And I would say we're not even halfway through Act 1, right? This is going to go on for years, this disruption. And it's something, and something that's really comes from understanding what did not go the way they intended in Trump 1.0. And understanding the personalities involved that successfully deflated the goals and ambitions of Trump 1.0. Very disruptive, but had some very important people put the brake pedal on a lot of the things that he wanted to do the first time around. And he's learned all his lessons. He learned how the system worked. He didn't understand how politics work. Now he's coming in to understand that. He's gone off, he's done research, or he's probably paid a bunch of people to do research. He's surrounded by teams that understand the FDR way of doing things, and here we are. So this is just the beginning. All that means is that for you, your family, and your business interests, there are going to be many, many more iterations of significant disruptions coming. The point is, you have to be absolutely, unquestionably ready to navigate that, right? Because if you can't navigate the chaos, you can't search for opportunities. Because if you can't keep the bottom line running in your family or in your business, it's very difficult for then you to concentrate and look for silver lining. This is the part of what we talk about in the need for having a robust, bespoke risk mitigation strategy in your family and in your business. It is key to getting yourself prepared. Like, the company, this podcast, Inside My Canoe Head, is owned by Preparedness Labs Incorporated, right? Preparedness Labs Incorporated is a company, the research and education firm into this one field. How do we set individuals, families, communities, and small businesses up for absolute success so that they can identify risk, understand risk, mitigate risk, come up with a plan so that when these kick-arsing disruptions happen, from things that are beyond your control. You have your small little pity party moment. You post your thing online about how pissed off you are, and you have your little emotional diatribe, and you get in a little clan of people, and you go, yay, yay, yay. We all agree this is idiotic. And then you swing fire to where's the opportunity, because you have a mitigation strategy to deal with things like this. Now you're swinging fire where within my line of business, or you can be a bold entrepreneur and try something way out the lunch. But at a minimum, within my line of business, it could be nursing, it could be teaching, it could be auto mechanics, it could be carpentry, it could be electrician, it could be a professor. It doesn't matter, right? All of these lines of opportunity, all of this business, whatever your business is, there are going to be opportunities emerge from the disruption and reorganization of the global order. Internally to your locality, regionally, within your country, and definitely cross-border. Are you going to be one of the individuals who, because of your risk mitigation strategy, you're able to navigate these disruptions without any significant losses in your family or your business, which allows you to spend the majority of your time concentrating on where the opportunities are going to be found? Somebody designed for you face masks and made $1 million in less than a month at the start of the pandemic, okay? Those opportunities and similar type opportunities exist in almost every industry right now. You have to find them, but you can't be spending time finding them and seeking them out and understanding the world around you and forecasting where this may go if you don't have a risk mitigation strategy at your business. Now, this disruption is crazy. I know. I get the emotionally charged part of this. Part of the issue that you're going to have, and that all of us are going to have, is that we're going to see things continue to happen that are that counter to our sense of justice, right? Counter to what we believe is right, is morally appropriate, and somebody is deconstructing and reconstructing the international global order and governance systems in a very short period of time. And we're going to be affected by that. It's just the way the world works. We're going to be affected by it. And so you are in a very unique position in the modern age because you have access to so much information across the internet, but you also have a series of echo chambers. And I'm going to caution you against getting involved in an echo chamber and surrounding yourself simply by people who sound like you. And this gets back to something I said at the very beginning of the podcast about finding that expert online who says exactly what you want them to say. So, and I'll give you an example of, and I don't care, again, emotionally feelings, what you're feeling on Elon Musk is. I mean, you can have it, good, bad, or indifferent. The X platform represents the place where all voices are. Now, it's a place that is modeled off the U.S. model of free speech, which means I can call you an idiot, dumb, and stupid 17 times a day and go after all of your posts because that's free speech. Okay? Maybe joining in a harassment at some point, sure, but that's free speech. You can't enter the public square and write the rules of the conversation. You can't step into the public square and say, I want to say what I want. I don't want anybody yelling at me. I don't want anybody challenging me. I don't want anybody calling me names. And oh, by the way, I also want to block a whole bunch of people from being able to see or hear what I have to say because I don't like them. That's not how the global public square works. That's not how the X platform is designed. I go on there and I follow an equal number of voices on the hard left as I do the hard right. I follow an equal number of voices on the bottom of libertarian and the very top of authoritarianism. Because remember, the political order is not a linear left and right. It's actually a quadrant, a top down, because you have authoritative and libertarian from the top to bottom, and then on the left to right you have liberal and conservative. So liberal just being people who want to change things, and conservatives being people who love it just the way it is and don't want to change anything. That is the political order. I surround myself and intentionally follow and listen to podcasts and voices from all four quadrants. And I do that because I want an informed knowledge base. I want to listen to people for whom I have a political disagreement an economic disagreement, an ideological or cultural disagreement. I want to listen to them. I don't want to shut them out. And part of your success going forward in these disruptive times till about 2032, which is what myself and others are forecasting when this is all going to come to a rest, I would strongly recommend that you'll be far more successful when you listen to everyone. I'm not saying you agree with them. I listen to far left podcasts that talk about the need for the government to solve our problems. I don't see the government as a force for good in solving people's problems. And maybe in a very few select areas, sure, but as a broad spectrum thing, I don't think that's true. Other people do, so I listen to them. I listen to their arguments. I listen to their strategies. I look through their emotionally charged diatribe, hatred of other people and certain political figures to try to understand why they think the way they think and what a world through their vision would look like. That is a very important thing, and it's another key enabler that's free of charge in the world of preparedness and the world of resilience, is to surround yourself by people who don't think like you. Surround yourself by voices that are not sounding like you. Otherwise, what you do is create nothing more than an echo chamber, and you lose the ability to understand the world around you. And then we simply start seeing each other as enemies. And this is very similar to the effort that a right-wing figure, Charlie Kirk, did leading up in the election. And you saw him, he went to campuses, and whatever you think of the individual, his motive behind it, other than obviously raising his stature, as we all do when we go online, is he was trying to have a debate and discussion with people who had opposing views to him. He wanted to talk to people who thought socialism was good. He wanted to talk to people who thought Kamala Harris would make a great president. And now obviously he had his very fervent and religiously based ideas, and you don't have to agree with it, and I don't agree with many of his religiously based ideas. But I like listening to those exchanges because what I want to hear is people I don't agree with, right? And there's some pretty crazy right-wing people that I don't agree with, just as much as there's crazy far-left, dangerous individuals that I hold the same beliefs on, or authoritarian people that believe government should have a great deal of control and government should be able to strongly regulate society for the good of the individual. And then there's libertarian, which is my world, my viewpoint, and I listen to a few voices there, but I do a lot of work to try to limit the amount of people I follow who follow the same ideology that I do, because otherwise you just get an echo chamber and you lose touch with the reality around you. And when you lose, and this is one of the key success elements in finding opportunities in chaos, if you understand how everybody in those four quadrants thinks, if you understand how people with different views around you think, you'll understand what they're looking for and what possible things you could offer to solve their problems from a business venture point of view. And again, I'm not just talking about entrepreneurs. I'm talking about if you're an electrician and if you're looking, or you're a carpenter and you're looking to do work and people are looking and they want Canadian-based systems, Canadian-based suppliers, Canadian-based products. Well, you probably should have had that all arranged back in September when Donald Trump looked like he was going to win the election, or at least definitely after November when Donald Trump did win the election. You should have had that robust list of Canadian suppliers for your business ready to go, and an advertising campaign saying, because Canadians are calling for it right now, your campaign for saying that as a carpenter, our remodeling business only uses Canadian-only products, and we can show you our purchase order agreements for those products to demonstrate that we, in fact, only support Canadians. All that marketing you should have had ready a month ago, right? Again, that's a business that's paying attention, understands the world around them, as getting ready to deal with changes that are likely to occur. Which means the day the tariffs came in, welcome to today, 4th of March, or whenever in the future you're listening to this, your ad campaigns would be all over the freaking air. You would be literally soaking your local market, telling everybody who's thinking about renovations that your carpentry or electrical business is Canadian, will always be Canadian, and you're flying the flag from your van as you're driving around the city. These opportunities exist. It's something. It doesn't matter what field you're in. You can get ahead by understanding the world around you. Again, nobody cares if you agree with it. They really don't. Have your little diatribe and your little pointy and angry posts online about how the skies. I mean, if I read another, and it's really funny because I spend a lot of time paying attention to people in the emergency management space. And the people in the emergency management space are some of the worst that are talking about apocalyptic outcomes about things changes that are being made in the U.S. administration. Not how to deal with it, not how to navigate it, not suggestions for the public, just you're about to lose your crap. Everything's about to come apart. It's all apocalyptic. Look at the bad guy, the bad dude, whatever you want to call him. And that's from a whole bunch of really intelligent people. And a bunch of people with PhDs like me, they're all talking about this apocalyptic outcome. And I think it's both sad and hilarious all together. So, to summate what we talked about today, it sucks. Nobody wanted this to happen. Here we are in tariff land. You've got to have a risk mitigation strategy for your family and for your small business. And it doesn't matter whether you own the business or you work in a business, to have a risk mitigation strategy that's going to allow you to spend some significant amount of time, which hopefully you've already done. But if you haven't, now's a better time than ever to jump in and figure out where the opportunities in your line of business are going to exist as these systematic changes continually be made. This is not even the end of Act 1, my folks. This is going to get crazy. It's not even crazy yet. The changes are going to be wild. They're going to be iterative. They're going to be compounding, and they're going to come out of left field. So are your families ready? Is your business ready? Are you ready to navigate all of this? Because that's your responsibility. It's not somebody else's job to get ready and do that for you. That is your job, right? Your risk mitigation strategy deals with that. Look out. There are going to be some incredible opportunities to make great difference in the world and make a great deal of money in these chaotic times. And it's all laid out. It's all available to you. You have to find it. And we appreciate you joining us this week at Inside My Canoe Head. Please drop by our website at www.insidemycanoehead to leave us all of your commentary. Otherwise, what you think of this podcast, good, bad, or indifferent. And we ask that you share with friends, because we get the message about preparedness, resilience, risk mitigation out by telling other people about great sources of information. And I hope we here at Inside My Canoe Head represent that for you. So take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.